18세기 프랑스에서 시작된 살롱 문화는 프랑스 혁명에 지대한 영향을 미쳤다고 하는데요. 다양한 배경의 사람들이 모여 사상과 생각을 공유하면서 혁명적인 생각에 불씨를 키웠다고 합니다. 오늘 저희 우리술 살롱 토크쇼에서는 굉장히 비슷한 무언가를 도모하려고 하는데요. 바로 저희 게스트분들을 초청해서 그들이 저희 우리술에 대해서 어떻게 생각을 하는지 말씀을 나눌 생각입니다. 오늘 초대할 게스트분들은 우리술에 대한 전문성과 사랑이 빼어나신 분들인데요. 그뿐만 아니라 한 가지 특징이 더 있습니다. 바로 그들이 외국인이라는 점입니다. 외국인 입장에서 우리술에 대해서 어떻게 생각하는지, 우리술에 대해 빠져들게 된 계기가 어떻게 되는지 등에 대해 물어볼 준비가 되었습니다. 그럼 한 분 한 분 초청해서 게스트분들 초대를 하겠습니다. 조셉, would you like to? 반갑습니다.
네, 반가워요.
더스틴 씨? 안녕하세요. 그리고 마지막으로 카를로스 씨. 반갑습니다.
When did you get a clap? I didn't get a clap.
Oh, that clap was for everyone.
Oh,
I was
okay,
saving
okay.
it for later.
Once
again.
quick.
자, 저희 오늘 게스트분들 한 자리에 모이기 힘드신 분들을 모았는데요. 자, 한 분씩 자기 소개를 듣도록 하겠습니다. So starting from Mr. Joseph Lidgerwood, would you like to introduce yourself to our guests?
안녕하세요. 저는 조셉입니다. 에브스 운영하고 있는 셰프 조셉입니다.
반갑습니다.
네, 안녕하세요. 저희 브라질에서 온 카를로스 고이르입니다. 한국에서 10년 동안 우리 술을 사랑하면서 살아왔어요. 너무 좋았어요. 감사합니다. 반갑습니다.
안녕하십니까. 저는 전통주 소믈리에 우리술 소믈리에 더슨입니다. 반갑습니다.
반갑습니다. 여기 있는 조세프 씨는 레스토랑 에빗이라고 이제 미슐랭 스타를 받은 굉장히 굉장한 식당의 훌륭한 식당의 헤드 셰프이시고요. 그리고 카를로스 고리토 씨는 저희 비정상 회담에 브라질 대표로 나오셨던 그런 탤런트십니다. 탤런트. 마지막으로 더스틴 씨는 저랑 사실 구면인데요. 예전에 다양주연구소라고 우리술에 대해서 배우는 그런 교육기관에서 같이 술에 대해서 배우고 그랬던 인연이 있습니다. 그러면은 여기에서 영어로 조금 전환을 해가지고 한 분씩 좀 질문을 드릴게요. 각각 한 분씩 우리나라에 어떻게 오게 됐는지, 그리고 우리 술에 대해서 알게 되고 빠지게 된 계기를 하나씩 여쭤볼게요. So starting from Mr. Joseph, I would like to ask you how, out of many different countries in the world, you chose Korea to open your own restaurant,
Yeah.
and also how you got to know about Korean traditional alcohol or 우리술.
In Korean or English?
In English, right?
So for 2016, I was traveling to different countries, and I came into Korea to do a pop-up restaurant for a month, and I traveled around Korea. And at that time, I didn't know anything about Korea because before you come to Korea, all you hear is kimchi and barbecue and pretty low resolution, kind of not very deep. So when I came, I was really kind of fascinated about kind of all the stuff that Korea has in regards to its food history. And I was really fascinated. That was the main driving force because I'm a chef, and I've really, before that, I'd always worked with the same ingredients. It'd always been asparagus and butter and foie gras and salt and all those other boring ingredients. And then when I came here, you have the ingredients are really fascinating. You have just such a diverse range from monge, doenjang, all the fermentations. You have the henyos in Jeju. You have all this crazy stuff going on that you don't hear about. So as a chef, I was really drawn to it. And then alongside that, the Korean alcohol is just one of those things when you're eating out and having Korean ingredients that it just made a lot of sense. And as I was introduced to like classic flavors of like pajeon makgeolli, and then you have like chimek, or you have the soju with the kind of with seafood. It's just one of those really nice combinations that as a chef you're always thinking about what you can put together and how you can match. So that was the main reason that I opened my restaurant and I came to Korea. It's more just because I wanted to learn about the ingredients.
I was really impressed on your restaurant's take on Korean ingredients because it would be you've worked in the French Laundry, right?
Yeah.
The 3 Michelin star restaurant, very renowned one, in the other part of the world. And you must have been accustomed to using ingredients like just like you said, foie gras or like truffle oil,
Yeah.
all those ingredients. But you've come to Korea and reinvented Korean cuisine using your expertise in food by using Korean ingredients like, I don't know, mushroom or doenjang, just like you
Yeah,
said.
yeah. I think like you said, like, deriving flavors. How we used to do it would be like butter and salt and build that come to that kind of, or however you say. I think, yeah, at the restaurant we do approach it a different way, but we do it in a lot of a kind of a newer style of way. Is that I always get a lot of the credit for the restaurant and how it's going, because it's very easy to see a restaurant as a protagonist, having one person at the front who does a lot of things.
Right.
It's a very easy narrative, but we have a kind of a new way of thinking at the restaurant, is that anyone from a very young chef to a very senior chef can put an idea together as long as it fits within our core philosophy of the restaurant. That's kind of my main role, and that's why I think we can really approach Korean ingredients differently.
So I'm assuming that 우리술 to you and your food
Yeah.
cuisine is supporting the Korean food in general. It's one of the ingredients that you're using.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Definitely. Like all through our menu there's elements of Korean alcohol. We have from like your classic actual using alcohol to like byproducts like jjigae. We work with a lot of the breweries to use a lot of jjigae, so we're using a lot of byproduct. But yeah, throughout the whole menu there's at least 5 to 6 different alcohols. But it's just a great way of seasoning a dish or adding depth here, or adding like even just taking makgeolli to thicken up sauces and stuff like that. Just basic stuff along the whole menu. Sometimes you don't even directly taste it, but it's throughout the whole menu.
Right. Well, thank you. That was very interesting.
No problem.
So that is Mr. Joseph Lidgerwood, and right, we're excited to hear more insights about his take on 우리술 later. Okay. And may I, Mr. Carlos Gorito?
Yeah, so what should I talk about?
Oh, so my question was like, how did you come to Korea, and how did you learn about Korean like drinking culture and how you think about it?
All right. So I'm not a specialist. Actually, I feel very proud that we have so many people from outside coming to Korea right now with this curiosity to try new flavors, to try new ingredients, just like Joseph said. And I think curiosity is a key factor in enjoying Korea as a whole, but also with Korea traditional liquor, 우리술. When I first came to Korea, I didn't know much about the country. I was very much surprised about everything that was here, all the flavors, all the colors, and all the smiles in the faces of the people. People were very kind to me, and I learned it very quickly that if I wanted to get closer to Koreans, I would need to learn how they drink and how they join their liquor.
Right.
It's a key factor here when you want to make friends, when you want to make business, when you work, basically everywhere, even with family. When families they get together, sometimes they enjoy together. When you are under a very heat wave, when it's very hot in the summer, and right before a samgyetang, you try a little bit of komgangsul, right? So it's our liquor, 우리술, is in our everyday life here in Korea, and it just became part of my life. After I started shooting for TV, I had the chance to go all over the country, and I discovered, because by that time I had only been in Seoul, but I discovered that in every different region you have a different liquor, you have a different flavor, and everything is made with ingredients that are very fresh, they're very rich from that specific region. And sometimes you go into the houses of the people. When I was shooting, I had that chance, and I got many gifts. And probably the most common gift was liquor.
Right.
Yeah, that they were making at their homes. And that was amazing for me. So liquor is a very important part of Koreans, and I think it's maybe a very significant part of Koreans' soul. And that was something that I didn't know before I came to Korea. I had to live here for a while to discover that. It was very, very impressive, and I feel very happy that I had the chance to enjoy that.
Right, interesting. So, Korean 술 was pretty much a way for you to adapt to the new culture, like the Korean culture when you first came to Korea, and actually helped you kind of merge in to other people.
Yeah, of course. Well, there are other things, of course. Probably the language is one other thing that's very important. But if you only speak the language and you don't enjoy people's food, people's drinks and liquors inside that, it's hard to mingle. It's hard to get close to people. I think it's when you learn about the new culture, you have to learn about liquor as well. And well, in Korea, that's way more important than maybe in other parts of the world.
Right. Thank you. So we have Mr. Carlos Corritos. We have 3 guests, and 2 guests here are experts in 우리술. And Mr. Corritos, he has different insights because he took a different view and different part of the Korean drinking culture. So I'm excited to hear this balanced insights and perspectives from different people. Okay, so last but not least, we have Mr. Dustin Wessa, and the same question applies to you. How did you come to Korea, and how did you fall in love with 우리술? And I know you fell in love with it deeply. So.
I'd like to apologize to my liver. I'd like to build on what you just said, Carlos. When I first came, I came here to study, and I came as a vegetarian, which is extremely popular now, and it really was unpopular 15 years ago. And I didn't drink. Surprising, I know. There was a time. When
15 years ago.
Things
Okay.
change.
Things
Before
changed.
iPhone came out.
Because I was tired of not having friends. I came to study and I'm hitting the books, and then everyone wants to go out for a drink, and I'm the guy sitting there avoiding the samgyeopsal and saying, I'm fine with water. And then no one calls you back the next day, right? Like, hey guys, when are we meeting again? No, you're out. So, my first introduction to 우리술 was it was on my birthday, and I had a couple of my hyungs that said, hey, we know that you're struggling to make friends, so why don't you come out for a drink? And they took me to a bar. This was in Hapjeong, like way in the back streets. And there's this tiny little bar, and they brought out a bottle of 중납고, right? This is a
Very
ancient
traditional.
recipe, right? And so, a lot of times we're doing shots of tequila or cheap vodka, and the next day is just obliterated. But I tasted this 중납고, and it like something sparked in me. It was just like, boom, okay, what is this? And I got drunk enough to actually, when my hyung went to the bathroom, I stole the bottle, as you do. I put it in my backpack, and I walked home with it. And then I woke up in the morning, and I was just like, thank God I stole this. This is gold. And I called him, and I said, hey, Hyung, I stole your booze. I'll bring it back. And he goes, no, it's a gift. I was going to give it to you anyways. 'Cause don't steal from me again. Like, okay, fine, deal. So that's, I came to study Korean history. I was a terrible student. I don't like studying just kind of rote memorization. So there has to be a connection. And for me, alcohol and studying alcohol and the history and ingredients as well was just kind of a natural come together, this dance of the last 15 years. And then you start studying really seriously. And you start studying with masters, and you realize you don't really know much, and there's so much more to learn. And that's after you have a few friends, and then you can jump into being a professional. And that was kind of the jumping point for me.
Well, that's very interesting. So you had a wild shift from being a vegetarian, which is almost impossible in Korea. Like it's almost impossible to find any restaurant.
Yeah, you order a kimbap, and you're like, no gogi. And then you get your kimbap, and there's ham in there. And you're like, I said no gogi. And she's like, I heard you, it's ham. Right. I'm missing something here.
But now you're delving yourself into like, the expert part of 우리술. You are, I heard, reading old Korean recipes in regards to Korean alcohol, 우리술, and you're digitalizing it so that when people have their preference, I like sweet stuff, I like dry stuff, I like sour stuff, then you can recommend them with AI the perfect fit recipe that is
Perfect's
from.
a difficult word.
Okay, okay. Very
Computers,
relatively objective recommendation coming from AI, coming from old Korean traditional recipe. So is that right?
That's something I'm working on now. Yes, this coming weekend I have to brew. I get to brew 40 different alcohols from traditional texts in 2 days. So that's going to be an interesting challenge. But the reason we have to do this is because we want to get a proper database. So I chose Iangjus, only Iangjus from 5 different historical texts, and then brew them up. Hopefully we can do some gastrochromatography to get the actual compounds, and then we'll know exactly why this nuduk makes this aroma in this. I'm going way too far, aren't I? We came here to have fun. Where are the drinks? Why do you get I got the wine.
So that was a good transition. Well, thank you for sharing your insights and introduction.
This is water.
So for the next 15 years, I hope your liver stays, all healthy and good, so we can continue this.
Milk thistle.
Right. Okay. So, Mr. Dustin Wessa mentioned where are the drinks, right? So today we actually gathered here not just to talk about we learn about each other. It's not a sogeting, right? So we're here to. God no. Okay, but we're here to talk about those 4 selected 우리술. So we have different types of Korean alcohol. So when we say 전통주, people think it's just 막걸리, and sometimes I've heard feedbacks oh, isn't it 뱀술 or 인삼주? So people have this stereotype about 전통주, which is very old and old-fashioned. Didn't you get the same impression when you recommend 전통주 to your customers, or when you talk to your friends and recommend about 전통주? What kind of reaction did you get?
It's always basically, I don't like makgeolli. and for the people that say they like makgeolli, they do. But let's be honest, when we're talking about green bottle makgeolli, they don't like makgeolli. They like being drunk, with a pocket still full of cash.
Right.
Samcheon, all right, we did it. If that's the goal, then yes, you can accomplish it. But I think the bias towards 전통주 or towards makgeolli is because people haven't had the opportunity quite yet to be really exposed to what 전통주, to what 우리술 is. It's we're just getting there, right? But it's blowing up. We're fast. We're getting there.
Right. How about you? I was really curious. How do people react? Because I'm assuming a lot of your customers may be accustomed to all these European wines more than they have accustomed to Korean alcohol.
Yeah, definitely. I think because we have at the restaurant the Korean alcohol pairing, 우리술 pairing, and we have a wine pairing, but we always steer people away from wine because for us, for me especially, it doesn't really represent Korea. It doesn't it's not from here. It's not a really good representation of what's around us, and we always try and push people into it. And then through the pairing, it's people will go into it. It's they always want to gravitate towards wine because they're I know wine, it's good. Chongtongju is always this. Oh, it's a chamisul. Is it that pyeonijjeom on my way home? So we always steer them towards the end, and then they're super thankful at the end because it's they don't get to see those yakjus, those chongjus, all those kind of different variations of Korean alcohol, and it's always made with a couple ingredients, but you can see such a diverse range. I think when I've worked with Dustin in the past, the thing that he told me that's really stuck in my mind is that most of the Korean alcohol is made with 3 ingredients, and the amount of variance you can get by taking water, nuruk, and rice and just stretch it to its maximum is just incredible. And I think that's the big takeaway that guests who come to our restaurant go, oh my god, I didn't realize that it's only made with these ingredients most of the time, and you can create such divergence.
Combination.
Yeah, exactly. It's really wild.
So they feel it's kind of, what is 전통주? And then when they actually taste it, they feel pleasant surprise.
Yeah, well, they feel I don't want to put words in their mouth, but but I will. They're just happy because and I think as well, and you touched on it when we first opened up, is that I'm not Korean, in case anyone didn't notice it. And so they're always pleasantly surprised when people are showing them what's beautiful about their country. I think that's a real thing that you see a lot in other countries as well, where foreigners tend to go into countries and re-show the appreciation of things that people may have missed in their ordinary day-to-day life. And I think that's what I do. I think that's what Dustin does, and I'm sure you do as well. So yeah, I think that's what the biggest feedback is, that people are just grateful that we're showcasing what they've kind of looked past.
Okay. So that's a very interesting.
That's a bit of a tangent. What was the question again?
It was answered. My question was like how they react when you just introduce that concept to us.
Nice.
So okay, a little shift to Korean again.
Yeah.
사실 전통주가 사람들한테 물어보면 뭐 막걸리가 사실 대부분 나오는 답변이고, 심지어 적지 않은 비율로 뱀술이라고 대답한 분들이 계셨어요. 그러니까 얼마나 이 전통주에 대해서 사람들에 대한 인식이 굉장히 올드한 것을 알 수 있는 대목인데요. 사실 전통주가 막걸리만 있는 게 아니고 뭐 탁주, 약주, 증류주, 과실주, 기타주류 이 5가지 주종 안에 나뉘어요. 그리고 이 5가지 주종 안에서는 단맛술, 산미 있는 술, 드라이한 술, 뭐 고도수, 저도수 술 이런 식으로 굉장히 다양하게 나뉘기 때문에 정말 다채로운 술이라고 생각이 들어요. 우리나라 그 구글에 코리안 푸드라고 치면은 가장 많이 나오는 이미지가 사실 대부분 사람들이 생각하기에 떡볶이, 불고기, 뭐 된장찌개 이런 거라고 생각을 하시는데, 사실은 우리나라 백반상, 한정식이 가장 많이 나오더라고요. 그래서 우리나라 음식이 가지고 있는 가장 큰 매력은 물론 외국인이 보기에도 그렇지만 실제로도 다채로움에서 온다고 생각이 되는데요. 전통주, 굉장히 다양한 주종, 이름 한 가지로 포함할 수 없는 다양한 주종들이 현재 2,000종류가 넘게 우리나라에서 유통되고 있습니다. 그래서 그런 매력을 가진 우리 술들을 조금씩 제가 픽해가지고 오늘 이 게스트분들과 함께 즐기려고 하는데요. 여기 있는 와인과, 그리고 저게 와인이고 이거는 그 포르토 와인, 그리고 약주와 증류식 소주가 있습니다. 그래서 이거를 한번 저희 게스트분들과 맛을 보면서 품평을 해보도록 하겠습니다. So we have 4 우리술 today. So these two come from same winery, but that one is made with Korean grape called 산모루. This is wine.
Yeah.
And this one, they added brandy on top of this wine. So it's
과하주.
과하주 wine. So it's very similar to sherry wine or port wine. Okay, and then we have 약주 here, and this is very traditional. Like when you go to their website, they say it's 2,000 years old. You know, it's coming from Baekje dynasty. So you know, we'll see how it tastes like. And we also have a Korean distilled soju. Unlike Korean diluted soju, like something like like green bottle soju, like chamisul stuff. So we'll see how they taste different. Okay. So where should we start, Mr. Dustin Wessa? You're the sommelier here.
Carlos, you can start with that one.
Okay.
The rest,
The strongest one first.
you were 5 minutes late. I imagine it's because of last night. We need the 해장술.
All right.
No, I'm joking. Well, I mean, like, what do we go? The standard approach, lowest ABV to highest. Is
Sure.
that how? And this is 13. What are you at?
This one is 20%.
20,
18?
18?
25.
It says 18, seems a bit high,
No, that one is that one's 18. I haven't tried the one there at the end.
Right.
I'm gonna guess though that this one's aromatics are a lot more prominent
Right.
than that one. So we
Uh-huh.
might want to switch these last two.
Okay.
But,
Sure.
I mean, this is jampong anyway, so.
Yeah, it's okay.
Good morning. I thought I ordered coffee. What's going on? Do we have an opener?
Yeah, we do. Wow, so we are about to witness Mr. Dustin Wessa, the Korean traditional alcohol sommelier, opening his own wine bottle.
But this is a wine, so we're gonna ask Joe.
I'm not a wine guy, but I'll give it a go. sitting down. It's really difficult. Have you ever opened a bottle sitting down before? It's not. Oh, yeah.
On the bus.
I tried opening it without opener.
Smells like cork. Yep.
So, may I have the honor to?
All right, I'll do the
Okay.
pour. There we go. We'll start with you, Mr. Tennessee.
Thank you, sir.
How much? 500ml?
Yeah, I mean, $4.99 is
Wow, look at the color on that. It's like bar.
So FYI, this wine is made with this grape type called 산모루. That's a Korean grape.
Yeah.
So like we have many different types of wine across the world, like Cabernet Sauvignon or Pinot Noir or Malbec, all these different types. 산모루 is something unique in Korea. So we'll see how it tastes like. Okay, let's give it a go.
Dun, dun, dun.
Done.
Dun.
There we go.
See you on the other side. Probably the better Salmoreal versions I've tasted. Yeah.
I was expecting something more with more tannin, like,
Yeah.
but it's
They normally fall into the trap of doing it a little bit sweeter. So that's nice to not have something that's so sweet, which is actually like.
Because the grapes that we have available here, they're like, what is kobong, or like the bricks aren't high enough, right?
Yeah.
And then the yeast that they're using, it remains sweet because it's not able to consume all the sugars. And
Okay.
but this is surprisingly nice.
Yeah, yeah, I was ready to put on a fake smile, but I didn't have to.
oh wow, okay, that's
Yeah.
nice. But I'm curious, because in like Australia, where okay, so we're in Australia, where you're coming from.
Yep.
There are a lot of wines. I know. There's
Yeah.
like Wolf Glass is a very famous wine brand, right?
Oh, it's definitely a big brand. I think Australia, yeah, especially Barossa Valley and going into that region there, like reds are pretty super popular, and there's a lot of really good breweries in there.
I mean, so like I would like to ask you ask you about your thoughts about like how this wine is different from your own country's wine, and what you think about this particular one.
That's a tough question. Because for me, this doesn't taste like a. I think they've done a really good job in making this a more international style wine. So it'd be very hard for me to compare this style of wine to, say, Australian style of wine, because wine's that kind of thing now where if you taste it, it's very hard to, unless you're working with particular grape varieties, it's very hard to say, oh, this wine tastes like an Australian wine, or this tastes, because it's so diverse, right? It's so diverse. Like you can, but I don't know enough about wine per se to make that judgment.
Neither do I.
Yeah, I can just say, what I can say is this is quite delicious.
Okay. How about Carlos?
We have very good white wines in Brazil, not really red wines. But I would say this is not far from what we get there from Argentina, which is close by in Chile. It's a good surprise. That's from Korea.
Okay. Have you ever tried any other Korean wine other than this one?
Yes, I've tried, and just like he said, they're all a little bit like sweet. Maybe because Korean tastes like sweet, I don't know. But this is quite
true.
international, yeah.
Okay. And what about Dustin? What do you think about this?
I've tried Korean wines a good number of times. Started with mahjong.
Right.
No, I mean because Jinro Podoju in the little bottle, that's not a wine anymore. But when we first came, you're just like, wine, soju, damn it. Mahjong was like the first wine. That was 10 years ago that it came out, and it's because it was at the convenience store that you bought it, right? And like Yellowtail was still $40, Mahjong was 18. And like they're the same wines more or less. But this is This is nice. It has some good acidity. It's very easy to drink. If I were to compare this, I'm from the Northwest in the U.S., and so Pinot Noirs from Oregon are quite popular, and I would say this is about as light as an Oregon Pinot Noir. It's very easy to pair. You could go on the side and you can follow the rule with like red wine, red meat, but you could also do say like a blackened sea bass with something like this with a deeper flavors, and then go seafood route. It's very versatile to pair.
Okay. So for me, like this wine is interesting because okay, it's not very dry. It's semi-sweet, I guess. But at the end of the day, you can feel the tannin in your tongue. So usually, if you feel tannin, it's not sweet. And if it's sweet, if it's well, if you have tannin, then it's not sweet. If it's sweet, it doesn't have tannin. Like you have that regular. That's my impression. Right.
It's kind of the blanket expectation.
Right. But this one, you feel the tannin after you swallow, like maybe like 5 to 10 seconds after you finish drinking it. But while it's on your tongue, it's quite sweet. And Carlos, you're right about Koreans liking sweet stuff. Like, of course, it doesn't apply to all the people, but then
Mostly.
generally a lot of Korean alcohol, they follow the sweet line. So,
Do you think this is sweet?
Yeah, I don't think this. What year is it? Sorry, Justin.
I think so.
Okay, that's a great question. What year is this? 2020.
Oh, so let's see how that ages.
The vintage conversation is something that we should definitely get into. How we label 우리술, right? The nudic changes every year. That's the base. The temperatures change. The rice changes,
Yeah.
and we're sitting here pretending like we're making Budweiser or something. Like it has,
Standard product.
yeah,
Right.
like it has to be exactly the same. And if we're gonna succeed in an international market, it has to be the same every time. I don't believe that that's the solution. I think we should have vintages on bottles. I think we should go so far as to say 2016 여름, like summer 2016, spring 2016,
Right.
autumn 2016, because those. If you're still doing this in a traditional method, those variations actually make a ginormous difference in terms of bouquet and in terms of flavor.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. Because recently we have our soul pairing, and last week we switched back to a classic that we used last year that was introduced by Dustin, which was Omegi Malgansu coming out of Jeju, and I got it on the quick because we changed our dessert to a mushroom dessert for autumn, and I wanted something juicy to round it all off. And then the Omegi Malgansu I got was completely different, and it's like I'd been told this, and as a chef I understand the variations, but to see such a variation from when I tasted it, say 14 months ago to now, more higher acidity, a lot drier, and I was really, that's when because you can hear these facts, but until you taste it and you taste the variants, then it becomes like embedded in your mind. I completely agree that it should be treated as you would a wine, like say a 2016 Screaming Eagle is more like it should have that, because I would personally prefer to go back to a 2019 Omegi Malgansu from the summer and get that bottle. I'd love to have that in my cellar for something I could enjoy, as opposed to the Omegi Malgansu from this thing, just as a personal preference.
Yeah,
but
especially when you're doing a pairing.
yeah, exactly. You want those flavor notes, and it's really cool as well to be able to talk about, okay, this one from here, and this season it was a lot drier, so we've got more of these notes. It's so similar to wine, yet it's not treated as wine, which is
It makes my job really difficult because those notes that you won in 2019,
Yeah.
I know have changed in 2020,
Yeah.
and then I have to chase down the similar. Wait, where did that apple and like smoked mulberry bark? Which one is it in now?
Yeah.
You have to. Sorry again.
I totally agree. How should I put this? So just like how international wines have their vintage, Korean wine as well as Korean yakju, takju, all these other alcohol must have the vintage. I totally agree. It shouldn't be considered something like Budweiser. It's a really great insight.
Have you had the 2018 Budweiser? No one says that. No one says
I
that.
don't know what you're talking about. It's very versatile. Koreans, they like to say all the time that they have 4 seasons. And well, maybe we also have 4 seasons for drinks and
Yeah.
beers as well. We should label that. Why not?
So if you're watching this, maybe from now on, you can give more flexibility in terms of the particular product that you like or you happen to consume, because that's the beauty of 우리술, I think. Every time you consume this, because it uses different vintage rice or grape, it's supposed to have different tastes. So something like art piece, like this winery's product has art pieces as its label. So I think 술 and art, they are related in that regard. That's my take. Okay, so we had a good, conversation about what is it? B1, right?
I didn't even say the name. Sorry. Did we get the PPL on this? Can we get a close up, nice and tight, next to my face?
So that was B1 from 산막 Winery in Yeongdong Province. Yeongdong. Okay. Okay. So now, like, there is a wild shift to a 25% alcohol soju, right? Oh, this one. So let's see what happens if you chug it up, like in a one shot. Bring it up to
water.
one shot.
That's water. Oh,
Wow, yeah.
I noticed that we only have one glass for 4 alcohols, though.
Right. So how should he pour the soju in which?
are we not going to switch to that one? Or is it? We're just going to bypass it?
Are we gonna try this one first or soju first?
I think that one would probably be.
Oh, sorry, this one?
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
And then cleanse the palate with this,
Okay.
and then dive into a very aromatic one. That's just my.
Finish on that? Yeah, we'll take your... it's alright to put this one back into that.
Oh, no, that one's already mixed with that and brandy. You just.
Yeah, it's just...
아니요. They're gonna change the glass for us.
Oh.
You just pull them down from here.
And this one is 20%, the port wine kind of style. So while we wait for the glass to come,
Yep.
what do you know about port wine? What is port wine for those people that don't know about it?
Port wine is made in Portugal, right? In caves.
Yeah.
It's a fortified wine to keep wine like it used to go bad, right? So they said that something to strengthen it.
Right.
Isn't that what
Okay.
fortified?
Like to my knowledge,
Take the
so
different one.
it was developed from the export-import trade with England
Yep.
from Portugal, because they would export a lot of wines to England, but during summertime, those wines would go bad because inside the boat, inside the ship, it's super hot. It's mad hot.
Yeah.
Right. So the wines would go bad, and English people would be like, "Oh, like Portugal wine during summer, we can't consume this." So Portuguese devised a way to keep it safe even during the high temperature by putting some brandy and increasing the alcohol proof so that the microorganisms inside the wine don't really function anymore to change the taste of the wine. So. And one interesting fact about this wine is that it's really, really strong and very sweet.
Oh,
So that's something that I expect from this wine.
perfect. Shall we pour? What's
And
the...
This time,
Oh.
let me have the honor
Oh,
to
perfect.
pour all these alcohol. Okay. I've never worked in a restaurant, so let me
It
just
is
try
not
to
showing.
imitate.
You're holding
I need
yourself...
to have like a towel, but just kidding.
I can take off my.
Yeah.
감사합니다.
Okay.
Beautiful.
You're hired. You start Monday.
And I'm really curious. Oh, sorry. So
It's below
I'm
the
not sure
camera.
some pouring this wine. How do your country say the chanting word for alcohol? Like when you exchange glass,
Yeah.
what's the word what's the phrase that you say?
In the States, I believe now we say "Let's get it."
Oh, really?
I've been back to the States in way too long.
But is that really true? People say let's get it.
I hope so. I don't know. If
They're
they
also
don't,
throwing a ping pong cup. Ping pong ball into a cup.
that's right. They should be.
Right. That's a pleasant surprise. I would be happy to hear that. How about Brazil?
We say saúde,
Saúde?
which means health, natural
okay.
or health.
Mm.
But once I came to Korea, I started saying saúde, and people like they got mad at me because they thought it was
Sauda.
sauda or something like that.
Okay.
Then I had to tell them, no, come on, it's just health, guys, don't worry.
Right.
Yeah, saúde.
Okay. Why don't we go Saúde for this this
Yeah,
one here?
let's go.
Okay. So
Saúde.
Saúde
Saúde.
for this wine, which is called 초련.
Oh, that's more green stuff now.
Okay. So how do you feel about this fortified wine called 초련 from Sanmak Winery?
I've tried Portos from different parts of the world. My mom's Portuguese,
Oh, okay.
and my grandpa, he used to buy Porto wines by the box.
Wow.
By the box.
Okay.
So from time to time at his home, he would get boxes of Porto wines coming from far away. And it's a good Porto wine from outside Portugal. It's a little bit different. It's very light compared to like old Portos. But I think Koreans will like it. Like people here, it's still very hard to find Porto wines in Seoul. It's getting better, but still we don't have the availability that we have in Brazil, or of course in Portugal. But I would buy this one definitely. I would have it at my home and enjoy at night on the rocks. That's the way I like it.
It's surprisingly very much like regular wine. Like if nobody told me, I would just think it's just the wine. It doesn't feel like 20%.
At 20%. I mean, this guy
You have
goes
to
home and he's just like,
Oh,
he's just sitting there and he's like, oh, what percent is this?
Oh, it's a
53. Wow, I would have never have guessed.
Really, is it just me?
Yeah, I think it is. Just say
Okay.
straight up.
It's
Normally you
not-
go, no.
It's not regular.
Yeah.
It's surprisingly
Okay.
dry though, right?
Yeah.
Very dry.
Yeah. Normally, port wine or like fortified wine, they have sweet taste and very strong taste of alcohol. They feel some alcohol. I don't. So it's you should give it a try on your own and give a subjective thought on this. Okay. But yeah, that was 초련, the second wine from the same winery, and okay.
Pass this down.
I think yeah, we should go on to the third alcohol.
Third one?
Mm.
I think I'll leave this too.
So Mr. Dustin West recommended this flow because we have this aromaful wine from Yeongdong grapes that we wash it up, rinse it up with clean soju, and then we finish the tasting session up with a very strong, flavorful yakju.
Help me out here. There's a grape. You think this is grain, but not, and grain.
Okay.
Right? Because ryal is made with sweet potatoes, no?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is
right.
a sweet potato soju. Sweet potato sojus are extremely tedious to make because the amount of sugars that they can produce based on the low percentages of carbohydrates is limited. And so, I mean, it doesn't mean that you're not making proper alcohol. It just means that you're throwing away so much more. When you go to distill, like you're hoping to get maybe 30%, but with this it would be like 13, something like that. So the profit margins are quite high. This is why you don't see a lot of sweet potato sojus in Korea, specifically because it's very expensive to make. And as far as I know, also the laws on production, alcohol obviously produces methanol, but sweet potatoes produce a lot of methanol, so it's very hard to get that down to produce a nice soju. And this particular soju, as far as I know, took about 4 years of research to get into a bottle. So this is a Korean sweet potato soju.
Is this the brewery that you were telling me about that was that they were worried about it blowing up or something like that because of the methanol? The methane.
No, that was my house when I was making 70% soju.
That's
Wow,
Soju in a wine glass is absolute insanity, just so we know. But
okay.
Yeah. Oh. If you can be seen at all.
in those shot glasses, or
Thank
even
you very
something
much.
smaller.
So this ryo sweet potato soju, I'm sure you're all surprised from this point, right? Because we're not really accustomed to seeing soju that is made out of sweet potato, right? If it's distilled soju, people think it's just made out of rice. So it's one of the very rare breeds which uses, sweet potato. We're excited to know how sweet potato soju tastes like.
In a wine glass, just a note: do not take a big sniff.
Okay.
I mean, soju is served in a small glass because its alcohol is so high. Or do it, and we'll just enjoy watching you cough.
Okay. Even for 25%?
Like from a distance.
Okay, I know what you mean. Wow.
Peppery.
I've never had distilled spirits in a wine glass. And
Never will again.
First and last time for everything.
okay.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Let's get it.
Oh, sorry.
Let's get it.
There we go.
Done.
Dun, dun,
I can taste the sweet potato.
Wow.
Is it just me?
Yeah. And again, just no.
And just like what Dustin said, it's the amount of sweet potato put into making this one renders much less alcohol compared to what you have for rice. So it's much more premium and hard to make alcohol. This alcohol is comparable to Japanese alcohol called shochu, right?
Shochu.
Because more of that is made with sweet potato. But I don't really know about shochu myself. If any of you know about shochu, like, can we compare this alcohol to general shochu?
Yes, we can.
How is it different?
I got into about a 3-hour argument with a shochu som last week, so I'd rather not. It's a very sensitive topic, actually.
Okay.
Between the shochu and the soju debate. But yes, I think there is ample evidence to say that sweet potato sojus and sweet potato shochus are easily comparable in terms of what the end goal is. You're looking for something that is clean but retains a little bit of sweetness and has a moderate aromatic profile. And that's why you use sweet potatoes. It provides more aromatics. So.
Okay. So this one compared to that one is generally more aromatic, or
Japanese alcohols tend to be made with a different purpose. So a lot of times when we talk about, people ask me, what's the difference between a sura and a sake? It's not immediately comparable because the general goal of sake is to make something clean and light. And the general goal of sur is to make something with body and aromatic properties, with flavor. And so that's the reason we use more or less all of the rice. That's why we're still using nuruk and with a lot of different yeasts available. And sake is made with generally speaking, one type of yeast grown on rice, which tends to be a cleaner alcohol. And so the end goals are entirely different. So it's difficult to compare them in that
Right.
way.
wow, you know what? I think, Dustin, later you should be a professor. You sounded very convincing, whatever you said.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, you're right.
Yeah, and
His
then
argument
right
used to be a
now,
lot different. It used to be.
everyone's checking right now, like, that's not true.
Okay.
When I first met him, his definition, if you don't mind me saying, his definition between sake and Korean alcohol is sake with flavor. Was that Was
It's the
was
same argument. It's the same argument.
It's great to see the polished version of it now. It's such a defining moment.
Oh, it's like a bomb revelation.
Yeah,
But yeah,
stopped making enemies and started wanting friends.
okay. Before we move on to next alcohol, I would like to ask one question to Carlos. I'm guessing you're more accustomed to drinking green bottle soju instead of like distilled sojus in your daily life, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so like how would you compare that, like green bottle soju, to this one?
I feel sorry for calling this soju like using the same name because they're so different. And that's actually one problem that like foreigners living in Korea, people that are coming from outside, they have. Because everything is called soju. You have so many different kinds of soju. But among those types, the flavors are so different and the types of liquor are like, you have very rich ones and very, very good ones. And it's a pity that we call the green bottle ones the same
Right.
word, yeah. So I think maybe we should do a little bit more in like getting people to know that it's a very large and very broad category, and then you have very good soju to taste like this one.
Do you have any like opportunities to try distilled soju in Korea in your like daily life or
Like
casual
this?
dining? Like that. Like doesn't have to be sweet potato distilled soju, but just generally.
Yeah, I've tried. Normally when you have a fancy dinner,
Oh, okay.
your guests they'll serve you good soju,
Right.
and that's when I found out. But it took me a few years to find out.
Okay. And which one do you like more? Is it an obvious question?
You mean between this one and the green bottle?
Right.
You can't compare.
Okay.
It's different.
Okay.
This one is the one I take to Brazil.
Mm.
To give gifts to my friends and my professors.
Okay.
Yeah, it's perfect gift.
Because sometimes people around me sometimes say, "Oh, I prefer green bottle soju much more." I mean, okay.
Well,
Wow. Yeah.
people they get used to it.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not that they like it. It's just that they're used to it.
Right. Right. That's right. Because alcohol is a product with gusto. Like you're supposed to develop your own style with it, and it goes through that development only from trying. So you tend to like something that you are familiar with, right? Okay. So let's move on to the next final alcohol, because yes, time is running out. The final one.
Oh dear, into plastic.
So could we get like one more set of glass?
We got
Oh,
one.
I think we got the
we
blue
have.
ones,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just
Oh,
pour
that's
this one.
2018 vintage. That's nice.
This is 2018 vintage, and I'm getting nervous. Okay, but this one.
Got it. Take it away, boys.
Okay. Okay. I don't know. Shoot. This one is not from this bottle. I don't know who put this on.
Oh, that was me. I was playing
okay.
a little prank. I was just trying to prove a point that we should.
Okay. So this one is called 한산 소곡주. Let's see how that dream tastes like.
Dream of failure.
It's just sweet.
I'm very interested to learn about your opinions about this alcohol. Because this one, out of all the other alcohols that we've tried, I'd say it's most traditional. Most, yes, traditionally Korean.
You
What
mean
do you
out
say?
of 2 wines and 1 soju?
Right.
Yeah.
Got me.
With this one though, sogokjus are characterized, generally speaking, by being very sweet, having a little bit higher alcohol percentages, and also being very aromatic. But the first sip is always going to be very sweet with a sogokju, but the second sip will be less, and then the kind of dry finish, it keeps going up. So with this one, instead of taking large drinks, taking a few small sips over the course of a minute will give you a better idea of how diverse this alcohol actually is. Cheers.
Cheers.
Let's get it.
Or is that just a way of
My third ship.
And this is why we're not going to pass our test
Yes.
later.
I know, I can understand where that story comes from. It's just, even though it's very sweet, it doesn't give me, I don't know, like, I want to keep tasting it. Usually, if it's sweet, you get sick of it. Like, I don't want to try it anymore. But then it has a different 매력 in that way.
Charm.
Charm. Okay. New vocabulary.
Media. Also for me.
Right. So one question for, any of you. When I first tried this, I was surprised because it has such a strong scent of nuruk. And I was wondering how this nuruk scent comes to you. It's something comparable to 청국장 or 된장 to foreigners, in my opinion. Very unique, very exotic to foreigners, in my opinion. So, what's your first impression of this alcohol when you first tasted it?
Muruk,
Yeah.
it's a Korean. It's a Korean flavor.
Uh-huh.
It's part of here.
Okay.
I'm used to it. I love 청국장 and
Uh-huh.
everything that's
Okay.
made out of that. I can't say I love the smell, but I understand that it's part of the experience. So I
Okay.
think it's the same here.
Uh.
It's the smell. It's just like it is.
So you think from Australia or Brazil or in the States, people would find it good, or how do you think?
Well,
Unique, definitely.
Unique.
I think, the very start of that is very, like you said, that kind of classic flavor. That, and then you delve into it, kind of rounds off a little bit towards the end. But like one of my friends came over last year, or sorry, the year before. We were opening the restaurant, and I was introducing them to a lot of the Korean alcohols, especially like cheongjus, yakjus, sojus. And I think, it's people looking from the foreigners coming in. They're always like, this is very approachable. I think this is something that's you could easily give and get someone to appreciate Korean alcohol. As opposed, I think it's a really good opener to actually showcase, because it is quite common flavor profile with Korean alcohols that are made this way. It's just very,
Yeah, I think it's one of the must-try kind of alcohol when foreigners come to Korea, because whether or not they like it, it's something very unique, and they can learn about Korean like alcohol culture from this one.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like I would recommend you to, if you happen to try this kind of alcohol later, try this with some other food, Korean food, some like, what do you recommend? Jokbal or some like other strong flavorful food, because this flavor kind of kills that flavor and they match really well. So, right. That's my personal opinion. Okay. So, we've tried all 4 different Korean traditional alcohol, 우리술. So, let's have like a really brief 소감, your brief thoughts about Korean 술, and what you think need to happen for 우리술 to be more popular in the general public. Starting from Dustin.
Sure. My views on that is it's just a matter of time. When you think about it, historically speaking, the last 100 years, I always say this, but the last 100 years has been unique and difficult for 우리술. There was an occupation, there was a rice shortage, there was a dictator, there was a country pushing really cheap flour in place of whatever to make traditional alcohols. So it was a very unique part of Korean history. Nothing was really lost, though. We still, you said 2,000 different types of 우리술 right now being sold on the market. It's just a matter of time. I think it wasn't until the 90s that we were able to brew freely at home again, right? So that's, 30 years? God, I'm getting old.
So it's just a matter of time.
It's just a matter of time. And companies like Surdamhwa and other avenues of promotion are working very hard to make the diversity of Korean alcohol easily accessible to the general public. And what I always say is, I never say like don't touch green bottle soju. Like it's not the enemy here.
Right.
It's just different. It's not. You can never compare traditional Korean spirits urisul to something that was produced in a factory at the lowest cost possible with the highest output of volume. Like, we always ask ourselves, do we like nice things? I think everyone does. Sometimes you have to have that in front of them to say, give this a shot and find what your preferences are. 나의 맛에 딱 맞는 술. Right?
Okay.
So it's just a matter of time.
Okay, let's wait until that happens and see if his prophecy was right. Okay, thank you. And Mr. Carlos.
Actually, I came here to learn, and I'm very happy that I learned so much. These guys here, specialists. I feel bad that I didn't know as much before, because it's so rich, it's so flavoring, and well, even this sport that I tried here, I'm probably doing a true moon for a few bottles to get at home. But yeah, I think you need to, just like you said, you need to put the bottle in front of the people and then they get to try. And initiatives like this help a lot. Like we're talking in English about sur that many Koreans won't know about it, and maybe sometimes they don't have so many resources even in Korean, in English. I imagine it's way hard. So doing things like this, I think is the way to go. I would try to attract tourists when they come to Korea to go on a urisul tour, an urisul experience. I think it's really rich and could be part of the Korean experience as a whole.
Okay. I hope Carlos later has more opportunity to try this one and become the missionary himself in propagating all these urisul culture.
Yeah,
okay.
I got converted.
Okay. And last but not least, Mr. Joseph Lizardwood.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to follow third on all the points that are already being covered. But I will try and, I think, Dustin made a really good point in caveat what he said in regards to it is changing, and you can see how quickly it's changing every year and the amount of interest of people coming in. When I first opened my restaurant a year and a half ago, it was very hard to sell the Korean alcohol pairing. Now it pretty much sells itself, and I think people's interest will grow. And I think we just need to keep putting it in front of people, because if you're, say, you're at your local chicken shop and there's only a fridge full of green bottle, you're going to take a green bottle. But if we can find a way that we can put some more Korean there's a Maggie Malcolm, there's a bottle of Leo, you will be able to sell it. You will be able to go, this is it. So it's a way that we need to find now to get the breweries to get their alcohols less from the kind of the premium market, which is where I kind of buy mine from, but more into the bottles at your local chicken shop. Like, because if this was now in there, even at a higher price, people will buy it. You say, this is this, etc. That's where I think the transition needs to change, so then they can take a bit more of the pie, because I think they deserve it.
Okay, so I'll try to shift to Korean. 자, 여기까지 저희가 호주에서 오신 저희 셰프, 그리고 브라질에서 오신 저희 방송인, 그리고 미국에서 오신 우리의 소믈리에이자 지금 AI 분석가이신
그 잘 나올 건지는 모르니까
고문원 분석가이시도 하고 다양한 배경에 그리고 다양한 그런 생각들을 가지신 분들과 우리 술에 대한 토론을 나눴는데요. 재밌는 이야기들이 많이 나왔던 것 같고, 살롱이 굉장히 다양한 생각과 좀 더 혁명적인 그런 결과를 이끌어냈듯이 이 우리술 살롱에서 나온 이야기들이 지금 보시는 시청자 여러분들을 포함해서 우리술에 대한 좀 더 혁명적이고 미래를 바꿀 수 있는 그런 자그마한 기회가 되었으면 합니다. 여기까지 저희 우리술 대축제 일환으로 준비가 된 우리술 살롱 토크쇼 마무리하겠습니다. 감사합니다. 우리술
파이팅!
파이팅!